Hello, Amanda, and hi, Tina.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you, Jeff.
Yes, can hear you.
I don't know if I heard you or not. See, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people ready. Amanda, Kathy, Melanie, and Tina. We're waiting for Vicky. If she doesn't show up in a couple of minutes, we'll just go ahead and start and she can catch up. Clear the screen here. Definitely going to do this on Zoom the next time. Next course I offer. Too much real estate taken up on the screen with people. All right, I'm going to add my mic. It's a little clearer. All right. And we'll just begin. So welcome everybody to class 8. And we'll have to have a dialogue at the end of this class to talk about an alternative meeting time for the last class, because I won't be here in this house, and I'll be somewhere in the middle of here in Colorado and I think Iowa or Florida. So we may have to postpone for a couple of weeks the last class and wrap that up then, because it's pretty busy between here and that time when I have to leave, which is next Wednesday. So welcome everyone today. And today, the class 8, we're going to be dealing with the nakshatras of SHRAVANA, DHANISHTA, and SATABHISha. SATABHISha is the way you pronounce that. So we'll start off, as always, with some chants. And so let's bring our attention into the present moment. Eyes closed. And let's take a long, slow, deep breath in. Hold. And let go. Just feel the shift that just one breath makes to bring you into the moment. And let's take a second, long, slow, deep breath in and hold. And release. Keeping the eyes closed. Om. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigam Avamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanaspatiyana Shrinvanti Pisi Dasadanam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha Hari Om Guru Brahma Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And when you feel ready at your own pace, you can open your eyes. And just to be sure again, would somebody open their mic and just say they can hear me before we get going?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Kathy can hear you.
All right, great. So I think we're safe enough to go forward now. Let me move this bar out of the way. And we'll begin with the first slide. So first thing that Barry wanted to share with everyone was a notice way ahead of time that on May 23rd, he's going to start a whole series of Nakshatra techniques classes. And so this is going to be a 20-week program, and it starts on May 23rd, and he's organized it into 2 parts of 10 weeks each. And that way it allows for people to budget and schedule appropriately. And this is a intermediate class, so it requires some knowledge of the flavor of each of the nakshatras, but you've already taken that in this class, so you should be ready for it. But this class will assume that you have a basic knowledge of the meaning of all of the nakshatras and constellations. And like I said, we've gone through all that. And for future people coming in, they'll be able to catch up with everything by just taking this class that we're involved in right now. So that's something to think about. And the preview on it is going to be the introduction to nakshatras and their techniques, an overview of their nature, the Shakti and the predictive techniques that are used. And he said it'll be available on YouTube, and here's the link for it. YouTube. I'm not even gonna say what it is, but it's there on the slides. And the Nakshatra Techniques first course syllabus is going to deal with the nakshatras and the Navamsha interaction, parts 1 through 4, and that'll involve nakshatras and the nature of the mind, all the psychological, mental, and archetypical insights into personality, caste, nature, guna, and the elements. And the aims of life review, so the 4 purusharthas, the caste and the purusha, nakshatras, the nakshatra navamsha padas, and the 4 aims of life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, duty, wealth, pleasure, and liberation. fine-tuning the microscopic personalities and destinies of your DNA, transition points, the nakshatras and the gandanta, which are the soul lessons, and nakshatra padas in life purpose. Also be dealing with Navatara and Tarabala, the hidden matrix of the timing transits from your birth star, ascendant, and the dasha period that's active. So that'll be about predicting through nakshatra numerological techniques. That'll be parts 1 through 4. Introduction to Navatra and its core meanings. Special nakshatra, nakshatras 4th, 10th, 12th, 16th, 18th, 25th, and their special roles in predictions. And the interpretive nakshatra workshop for 2 to 3 weeks, which will be the Shakti of the nakshatras, the final dispositors of nakshatra lord and the dispositors of nakshatras, and using the mythology of the nakshatras and the deity analysis to fine-tune archetypes, patterns of the soul's journey. So the first class, the course fee will be $225. Early bird is $195. If you'd like to take both parts, you can contact Barry. You can pay $395 for both, an early bird special of $375. And he said if you want to receive that offer, just contact him first at support@appliedvedicastrology and .com, and he'll send you an invoice or some process to process your payment over the phone. So Nakshatras Technique Course 2 syllabus begins in August 1st through October 3rd, 10 weeks. Sarvabhadra Chakra Part 1 and 3, Nakshatra Aspects, refined timing and forecasting major events, and periods of health with Sarvabhadra Chakra. And going through the nakshatras and dashas part 1 and 2. So these will be the advanced techniques for more accurate dasha timing with proper nakshatra selection and interpretation, timing the key events from nakshatras through ripening in key years of the horoscope, nakshatras and muhurta, 3 weeks, understanding the key nakshatras and the tithi combinations for success and challenge, lunar day nakshatra combinations of yogas that cause challenges, the pata nakshatras, the impact of days of the week of certain nakshatras, and then miscellaneous topics for 2 weeks, nakshatras and Ayurvedic astrology, barren or sunya signs impacted by nakshatra placements. Looks like a pretty comprehensive course. Looks like it'll be a lot of fun. I don't know if I'll be in a situation to be able to take it, but I hope some of you get the opportunity to take what you've learned here and move forward in some of these classes. It looks like it's going to be a very interesting series of courses. Same course fee here, same thing about bundling for both parts and the early bird special. And just make sure that you contact Barry first before doing anything, and he'll send you the invoice and everything to be able to process this. All right, end of commercial. So what we're going to cover today are some of the best nakshatras. And the reason I say that is these nakshatras are in the sattvic portion, the sattvic purushartha of the zodiac. So the last 4 signs, we're ending it. This is really kind of the cosmic area where we begin to see some of the real mystical Vedic deities who get involved in here. And also the challenges of what it takes to become liberated, to become enlightened in your current state. And so we'll address some of those. And in the notes that I've written, especially when we get to the next class, I talk a lot about the issues that get in the way of people being able to be realized. And these are the nakshatras that we're going to cover today that are sort of the juice of everything. because they deal with for example, SHRAVANA is right in the center of Capricorn. DHANISHTA sits on the outer edge and bridges into Aquarius, and SATABHISHA sits in the center of Aquarius. So SATABHISHA is very mystical, energetic, inspirational, and involves magic from the other world. DHANISHTA really has a lot to do with what SHRAVANA sets up. So SHRAVANA is that state of exploring the real spiritual, transformational, or transcendent qualities of Capricorn. And we'll be looking at the strengths and shadow issues of all of these. And then I have a series of, as always, the readings for the forecast. I've gone a little further with in the last section, and I think I did also with this one, with the chart interpretations in the forecasts. SHRAVANA is, and these are very detailed, so they're much longer than some of the other ones that you may have read in the text. So let's start off with the first, the flow of the spirit through the mind in SHRAVANA nakshatra. And SHRAVANA means famous, hearing. And SHRAVANA is about that manifesting power of Capricorn and its ability to make the spiritual concrete. And I think I touched on this last week briefly, is with this nakshatra, this is an area where right in that exact point is this manifesting spot of the blueprint of the universe, and where it manifests from Shruti, Smriti, and Purana. And so the deity is Vishnu here. So you can see a connection. Now, Vishnu is thought of as the maintainer. If you remember, I mentioned this before, but his name actually means creator in Sanskrit. And Brahma's name means sustainer, the maintainer. And what Brahma does is holds the space for infinite potential to become enlivened, and Vishnu enlivens that. He creates that impulse of energy that brings all of Purana awake so that it begins to manifest as Shruti. And then Smriti is the way you recall that to memory through the direct experience. So this particular nakshatra starts at 10 degrees of Capricorn and goes to 23 degrees 19 minutes. And the ruler is moon. So this is a moon nakshatra. And the symbol is the 3 footprints and an arrow. It's a movable nakshatra, which means it can change dramatically, sudden, and often. And it represents the Deva race or Gana. The animal is a monkey. So, we can expect some peculiar, curious kinds of things that can show up here in SHRAVANA, and maybe even a playfulness that you want to consider here. So the story is that Lord Vishnu, the maintainer of the universe, in terms of the way the Vedic description of it is, it pervades all of existence. And there's a sense, the hidden truth and meaning that it exists in all action. So he hears the truth behind the words that you speak, and he sees the truth behind the actions you take. And he incarnated as Vamana. Vamana means dwarf, and he was the dwarf that covered all of creation in the 3 steps as a way to restore Dharma from the evil King Bali. So evil King Bali was like trying to own all of creation. And so in this way, something as small as a dwarf, like as a single word, can grow to encompass all of creation when it's aligned with Dharma and righteousness. And so the story is that King King Bali had sort of taken over everything. And at this particular point, Shiva said, actually the kings just said, I'm going to give you 3 wishes. And out of those 3 wishes, whatever you can do in 3 steps is what you get to possess. And, you know, he didn't think much of Vamana because he was a dwarf and he figured he wouldn't be able to take much property with 3 steps. And the 3 steps really had to do with the 3 levels of existence, you know, that deal with all of those practical things in the world, but also those things that go beyond the world. So that part of us, the inner part of us, the outer part of us, and then that spiritual nature of us. And so King Bali said, sure, go ahead. And so what happened, it was called Trivikrama, which means the 3 large steps. What Vishnu did is he expanded and became huge. And with each of the steps, he took over everything just with 3 steps. And so that shows that power of Dharma and righteousness and that ability to expand it through all of creation. But at the juice of this, the practice that we see as Shravana means listening. So it's not just about listening to something, but listening for the truth that underlies the words that are spoken. And then also hearing the silence that underlies them. That's the substratum of the sound. So there's a deep connection to silence here. And that connection is what binds all things together. So silence is the deep connection. And so this is the thing what we notice with Shravana, we're listening. But are we just listening, or are we listening for truth? And are we totally attentive to that? So one of the things Shravana can do in your life, for example, because it's in Capricorn, and Capricorn is really all about structures and strategy. How are you going to build and manage those structures and tweak them? That's why it's a movable sign, and it changes dramatically and sudden because you first set a strategy out. It's never perfect in the beginning. And the way you get a strategy is you have everybody contribute and you just sit, listen, observe. And what you'll notice most of the time, because you're the listener, is that many of the ideas that people are, you know, trying to bring forward for the strategy, they somehow don't compute. They turn out to be not very good ideas. And as the witness here, being in the state of silence and just listening, you're taking in everything that everybody says. And with this area of the blueprint of Ritam Parapragya, what you'll see is your mind will become full of the rhythm of their sounds. And this is really analogous to what goes on in your ear and your eardrum, because you hear impulses going into the ear, which vibrate on the eardrum, and they produce energy flowing from the eardrum across the empty space to the receptors that can hear things. And so it all passes through silence. And that ability to be able to vibrate the tympani in the ear so that those sounds can transmit across to where they're received by the nerves that pick up the sounds is very, very important in this way. And Shravana is very much analogous to Sanskrit. So to hear the truth, you have to listen to the words that are spoken, how they vibrate, and what do they feel like. So Sanskrit is a language of name and form, and the vibrations of Sanskrit convey the information. And reading Sanskrit on a page without chanting it is pretty much useless, because Sanskrit only conveys itself through nama rupa, so name and form. So nama is the sound that's made when you name something. So when you're dealing with something in Sanskrit, like Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, so just reading that on a page does nothing, because it's all done in silence. And Sanskrit, the name of it conjures the sonic form of it. And that's why Namarupa, name and form, is the characteristic of Sanskrit. And then becomes the precision with which you make those sounds, which allows you to feel what it is they're producing. So if you notice, when I did the beginning chants for the session here, we pause at the end so that you can feel the vibrations that are being created by the sonic forms. And each one of those chants that I do is the traditional way that you always begin any type of instruction. You always begin with 3 times Om, then you give reference, which I screwed up today, to the gurus that are involved, and pay the tribute, and then you ask for everyone to gather together in an effort, or in a letting go of just being together. Let us be together. Let us eat together. Let us be vital together. Let us be radiating the light of truth, and never denounce anyone, never entertain negativity. And this is particularly, that chant is a SHRAVANA chant, because what you see in SHRAVANA is you're listening to those outer manifestations. And so, but are you really hearing and feeling the truth of what they're conveying? And you'll notice, if you're sitting in a strategy session with people and they're talking, you don't even have to have SHRAVANA in your chart, because the moon goes through there every month. And at some point, you've had this experience where you listen and the ideas are not so good. Some of them may be negative, and some of them just are not practical. They're not committed, determined, and practical, which is Capricorn. And so when they get done, what you'll find yourself doing is there'll be like an inspiration that comes to you, and everything will get quiet, and you'll say, those are interesting, but why don't we do this? And whatever you say, everybody, they'll just pause and look at you and they'll go, wow, that's a great idea. And that's because you've been feeling the truth behind that. You know, sometimes people tell you things and you know it's not true. You can feel it. And so this is how you understand the meaning of the impulses of Sanskrit. The Devanagari shapes the sound, which is, Devanagari is just the characters, which are the divine characters, Deva Nagari. So they have this whole lesson of Sanskrit becomes really key here. And when you learn Sanskrit, you want to learn it as perfected as you can learn it. What happens is you're given grace, as it's said by many of the Sanskrit teachers, for when you're learning. The gods will accept that period of time where you're perfecting each of the sounds and using them properly. Once you've been properly trained, it creates a ghost language if you don't do it correctly. And so SHRAVANA is the setup for that, and DHANISHTA is the delivery. So DHANISHTA is like, okay, now we need to do everything in a very meticulous fashion. And so because DHANISHTA is ruled by Mars. So, you know, Mars is about precision, and it's also about intelligence and presence and awareness and innocence as well, and the vitality that those bring throughout the body. There's also aggression and things like that that can show up in it. But these, because in Capricorn, when we get to the next nakshatra, that is in Dhanishta, that is where Mars actually becomes exalted in Capricorn. So very, very profound level of awareness, focus, logic, and the ability to bring out the vitality of what the Sanskrit is. And the Sanskrit's vitality is expressed through its feeling. That's how you understand the meaning. And so once you've mastered the sacred art of listening and connection, it allows for amazing outer and inner manifestations. And that's why I said that's where you want to express yourself to someone, and you want to say, to them what the idea is, because it's manifested literally a reality that comes out of it, because behind the scenes is the Ritambhara Pragya. And that's where it's happening. So Shravana is all about rhythms and feeling those kinds of things. And so this is what you see here in Shravana is the power of a good name and a reputation. But you have to take care not to fall into lower qualities of like speaking gossip and negativity. And you notice in your life that whenever you gather with people and you might be feeling really fresh and you start to talk about gossip about something, there's just some draining of the energy that happens. And if it turns negative, absolutely draining energy. So that's something very important to pay attention to. So Shravana, ruled by Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, the preserver among the great trinity of the Hindu deities. And this is where I talked about here in its form of Trivikrama. So he was the one that measured the universe with 3 great strides. And so its power is that of connection, called Samhanana Shakti, and its basis above is seeking. Its basis below is the paths. The result of these 3 is the connection of all things together. The power of connection, the seeking, and finding the path. A lot of things going on in Capricorn that are related to spirit taking form in a concrete way. So looking at the strengths and shadow issues, what you'll see in the strengths is that you'll be hard to deceive. And this is what I said, always sensing the subtle meaning behind what words are spoken and what actions are performed. So it also shows that an angelic presence and mentality draws others to you. You easily earn respect and trust of your peers and act responsibly when trust is given. Now, if we put this in the frame of reference of work, I'll just share my story. For years when I worked, I was always in marketing and I was sales and I was a public speaker, filmmaker, jazz DJ, all that stuff. And I always was known, I always had a good reputation because of the quality of what I would say and how I would say it in a meticulous way. But I never understood that strategy was a key part of what happened in my life, because Capricorn was about my body, my head, my body, and my personality and identification. And I never thought of myself as strategic, because most of my career functions took place in Libra, and Libra is where you're always doubting and you're hesitant to step forward and claim what you actually do, even though the 10th house is like, it's the highest place in the chart. So the most success, the greatest opportunity for really making an impact in the world. And because I didn't understand it through Jyotish at that time, but I noticed that several things would happen is like I'd get a job and then recruiters would be calling me all the time. Somehow my reputation got out, and I was always being recruited from one job to the next. And I was wondering, what was it that they were recruiting me for? And what I began to see in the most strategic thing that happened to me in 1990 was when Intel recruited me. And I was like, I don't know why you guys are, it's hardware. I don't know that I'm interested in that. I was a software guy. But when I started focusing on what they wanted me to do, I realized that they wanted me because of my strategy. And I just want to bring that out for everyone. So what you'll notice in your life, wherever Capricorn is, there's always some degree of strategy to it, because it's about Earth. It's about really thinking through all the details of the structures and the resources you're going to need. And so most of these you're pulling out of thin air. Like the reason that people hire you is because they want to do something and you have a skill. And so a lot of people's energies in Capricorn are the reasons why higher level people in the organizations favor you, because they listen to what you say and you're a good listener. And in that area of Capricorn, that all resides there. And so ideas will come out that will bring a wealth of all forms, which is the DHANISHTA that we're going to discuss next. So you can see here the third bullet, you're an expert at helping others find their station in life and connect people to each other. You also possess a natural devoted mentality. And this is something that leadership always recognizes. Wow, look at how committed. Look at how this person devotes themselves to this task and all the details that are involved in it, building out all the structures which we didn't even know. They hired me because they'd never distributed products into retail and value-added systems integrators and all of that, and they wanted to expand their business that way, and that was where I came out of. So think about that in your life. These strengths are the powerful things that you'll see, and leadership always notices that, because that Mars brings that awareness to that area in the nakshatra that follows here. You have to be careful with the tendency to wrap up too much of your identity in the opinions of others and the bonds formed with them. This may lead to destructive habits, like I said, gossiping, jealousy, oversensitivity, which brings enemies your way. And you must also be careful with a stubborn mindset. You may expect a lot in return for your care and service to others. Be careful not to become a martyr and satisfy your needs through guilt trips. The shadow issues you really have to work at getting those to come out. You have to really be in a disappointed state. And depending on where Capricorn falls and where Saturn is, that can be the things that can produce the sort of shadow issues here. And when Saturn's not strong and things get too difficult, you give up. So the places you want to see strength have to do with the strength points of Capricorn being in its, or Saturn being in its own sign, being exalted, being Mula Trikona. Those kinds of issues, you can pretty much depend on the experience and wisdom that you'll gain from anything that you do in those areas, because there's a strength in the signs like Aries where it's debilitated, or in a movable sign like Cancer. It can just be where when things get too difficult, too stressful, too hard to keep the commitment, you just say, okay, it's over. And you'll see this a lot in relationships, for example. So these are things to pay attention to, and that will bring out some of the shadow issues. I never experienced any of these shadow issues when I was doing work, but I have exalted Saturn in the 10th, and I work a lot. I work too hard, I think, sometimes. So this is the 22nd nakshatra, SHRAVANA, and it sits, as I said, in the center of Capricorn, and it gives you the desire to nurture others and feel emotionally connected and peaceful. So your happiness in life will be determined by your emotions. And the symbol is an ear, 3 footprints, and an arrow. An arrow flies straight. You know, that's the thing that you look at, the 3 footprints. We talked about the trivikrama. And of course, it wouldn't be anything without the ear. So this being the 10th sign of the zodiac, it relates to the outer world and the impact of that, and your career, and the contributions in work, and the pressures that you're willing to handle in order to make a difference. So these would always relate to things like, it's a large sign, so it resides in the center of a large sign, so it's going to be related to those things of the 10th house, which is the economy, government, politics, large business, large corporations, banks, large spiritual and non-spiritual, like non-profit organizations. And so in Capricorn, it's about the inner structure. It's deep. So everything about that Capricorn energy is to start from the surface and go within. And it's been said that Capricorn is about tunnels, mountains, and caves. So Capricorn energy in that inner structure, that emotional boundaries and the commitments as you face all the tangible fears of the world. So you need to cultivate a powerful container of solitude and willingness to face the truth, not just build a life of materiality and insulation from pain. So this means serious, ambitious, reserved, practical, responsible, and spiritual energy. And this is the most transcendent of the zodiac signs because it's put into action. Spirituality is put into action. And it comes from the earlier and later victories in life that come before Shravana. Those are the things that prepare you for that. And so dealing with these emotional boundaries and commitments, in a way, if you look at Capricorn, and it's where you have to pay back your karmas and where you have to face death, you know. And that's the biggest fear we all have, that someday the time is going to run out, Saturn, the clock's going to stop, Saturn, and there's no way we're going to escape that. And with the symbol of Capricorn being anything from a goat to an alligator, you can see that it starts first very stably, and then later on becomes more fluid. And so that really sort of mirrors the energy of the alligator, for example, because if you watch an alligator on land, it's running on 4 feet and it can move pretty well. And when it gets into the water, it just uses that tail and moves like that. So later in life, Capricorn begins to be more fluid, and the ability to evade different problems and things like that can happen there. And being ruled by the moon, there's no surprise that there's those emotional boundaries and commitments that you face and the fears of it, because the moon deals with our intuition and our ability to understand what it feels like to be alive. And so on the surface level, those come up as feelings and emotion. So we need to go deeper. And this is like a reflection of moon, which is opposite Capricorn. And so we have Cancer there. So these are all those situations of our ability to be creative and connect to our family, others. Mothers become a big issue here. And what are our habits and our boundaries? And those are the things that help us feel alive. Just like when we're feeling emotions in a water sign like Cancer or Scorpio, it shows we're on the surface level. And what we need to do is reflect more deeply, go within. If you're feeling emotions and stuff, it's just the churn and the waves on the surface. When you go deeper and devote yourself to going deeper, you connect to the source, which is the heart. And that's what we want to do with these water signs. So these emotional boundaries, you'll see them coming up in all of the feminine signs because they're about things that go deep within. Also, the other thing you'll see in things like Capricorn is people don't act. They don't start and just run off and say, yep, let's go do that. They have to think about it for a long time. And so I always have all kinds of issues about these things. Like I don't just do something because somebody says, hey, why don't you do this? So I had to have a discussion with Barry when he first said, let's do this thing. I'd love you to get on and present. And so I had to think about it for a while. What did I want to do? What did I want to say? But he picked the timing that was exactly right because I had just lost another opportunity just days before. And this one came into my hands. So here we're listening to hidden truth. We're hearing the truth underlying all the words and the vibrations which they create. So that's the Namarupa, the name and form. So the feeling given off by that vibration of spoken words will convey its meaning. So this is definitely related to Sanskrit and mantras. And what we're hearing in the silence of Shravana in our mind is several things. One, you might see when you're driving down the road listening to music, you're drumming on the steering wheel, or maybe drumming on the top of a stoplight. You may find yourself with that rhythm parapragya manifesting, or you may find yourself in total silence. But it's like there's music going through the head, like mystical sound of music. Or you might hear the mantras, Om Gananam Tva. You may hear that going on in your mind. So the deity being Vishnu, the maintainer, pervades all of existence and the senses, the hidden truth and the meaning in all words and actions. So he sees the truth behind everything as he's empowered with the capacity to feel into the deeper meanings that are veiled by all the illusory appearances of the world. Like people can make hand signals, they can dress in a certain way, they can use the right presentation materials, all of that, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're giving you the truth. And so the practical intuition and that earthly sensibility has been anointed in this nakshatra. It's like a superpower that happens. And the capacity for spiritual growth and meditation using mantras as sacred sounds and music is seen here. So one of the things that I go into detail, and you'll see when we get into DHANISHTA, is mantra meditation is a theme here. And we have all these different meditations that I'll go through in the next nakshatra that people do. There's a lot of the Buddhist meditations and Vipassana, and then there are mindfulness meditations, which really has to do with keeping the mind on the surface level, but just being aware of what's going on the surface. And what you will experience with mantra-based meditation is deep transcendence. And I'll break that down in a few minutes when we go into the next one. So the capacity for spiritual growth and meditation through mantras is very profound here. And actually, this is like the Maharishi was a Sagittarius and Capricorn was his values, and he taught mantra-based meditation. And that was the first one I learned when I was 19 years old. And it's just been the most profound, and my life has unfolded with much more of Sanskrit related to that. So think about these things when you look in your chart if you have Shravana. So this gives you the power to really connect a lot in a very meaningful way. And I think if I wasn't a Capricorn, I wouldn't understand Vedic knowledge all that well. It's just what happened. So from Shravana, we move into DHANISHTA. I have a friend who has DHANISHTA nakshatra. And the meaning of it is very rich, very swift. So Dhanishta shows Capricorn becoming Aquarius. So that's where the movable earth becomes fixed air, where structure is shared for the benefit of all after we've faced our fears. So there's an interesting expression here as you're moving into Aquarius. So this is, the deity is the 8 Vasus, and this the signs and degrees starts at 2320 in Capricorn, right on the last few degrees, the last 5 to 6 degrees, going into 6 degrees 39 minutes into Aquarius. And as I said, Mars is the ruler. The symbol here is the mridanga, which is Shiva's drum. And if you don't know what a mridanga is, it's a dual-headed drum. And there's a couple of different ones, but the mridanga has like a bead tied in the middle, and you flip it back and forth, and the bead swings back and forth, and you get the rhythm of the drum. And again, it's a movable sign, just like that bead changes directions dramatically, sudden and often. Bing, 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 bing. Or you can see double-headed drums like the damaru, which you're beating on both sides of the drum, as an example of that. And the race or guna is rakshasa. So there's some things stirred up here. Some trouble can get stirred up here, and the animal is a lion. And so you'll see that sort of proud, that sort of generous nature that you'll see of that lion, and the sort of feeling of power that they exude. So the story with the 8 Vasus, those are the raw creative elements of life. So we have, the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, sky, but we also have, some of the more celestial elements like the sun, the stars, and the moon. So these are the 5 elements of earth, along with the celestial elements beyond, and those will eventually take you to the heavenly abode. And so if you continue the practice of the spiritual nature, and you stick to, because Mars is exalted in Capricorn, you'll see the discipline to your practices. It's so important. I've been doing my sadhana for over 46 years now. Started at age 19, and every day I can pretty much count the number of times I missed it on one hand in those 46 years. But every single day when the alarm goes off in the morning or I wake up, it's like, do I really have to go do my asanas, my pranayama? I just want to lay here in bed. But I do it anyway. I don't listen to the mind. I control the mind. I don't let the mind control me. And that's always been the desire with it. And that's the Mars energy, that energy of being disciplined, and no matter what, do it. And it's its highest expression in this area, the last few degrees of Capricorn, where it flows into Aquarius. So March, my second wife's mother was German. Mach schnell, mach schnellen, Arbeiter. March, it's time to work. So Mars being exalted here, it shows the highest functioning of Mars as operating the primordial substances and the energies, the vitality of the universe. So Mars is the great architect and the alchemist, and it rules earthbound fire, the Agni. So the practice in this is that the nakshatra is equidistant between Capricorn and Aquarius, so the 2 Saturn-ruled signs. So you see a shift from inner silence to outer service, where all those individual fears and needs are being universalized and socialized. So this is really a powerfully creative nakshatra because it's related to personal and metaphysical alchemy. And there's a strong connection to Lord Nataraja, the Lord Shiva, in his dancing cosmic form. And you've probably all seen it where he's got the moon in his hair and he's like got his arms out and he's dancing, and it usually has him in a ring with all this fire around it. It's one of the most beautiful representations of Shiva. And because of success and power can come easily here, you must watch the lower forms of domination. So the nakshatra is related to the Sushumna Nadi at the seat of the Kundalini and its entrance at the Muladhara chakra. And because Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn, they rule Muladhara chakra. So DHANISHTA being ruled by the 8 Vasus, the gods of abundance that rule the earthly sphere, its power is to give abundance and fame, which is Kyapatyatiri Shakti. That's a mouthful. Its basis above is birth, and its basis below is afterbirth to become prosperous. So these 3 give the power to bring people together. Now, one of the things about an exalted Mars in Capricorn is that, like I said before in Capricorn, it's like I'll take my sweet time to figure out if I want to do what it is that's being suggested to me, like change career, go run for politics, work hard, whatever it is, those kinds of things. And so Saturn takes its own sweet time. It doesn't want to make mistakes. It's made a lot of mistakes, and it's always telling other people, don't do that. If you do that, you're going to experience this. So it's the wisest of all the planets because it knows that. It's already been there, done that. And it's pretty much been through everything. There's no stress it doesn't recognize, no commitment that it hasn't made. So there's a lot of depth of experience here. And then you get Mars in there, its exalted state, and what it wants to do is giddy up. It's like, come on, let's just blow things up. Let's get going. Let's do this. And Saturn's all the time going, oh, just slow down. You blow it up. We may need this. We don't want to just do that. So there's all that courage and that, that restlessness and that vitality of just let's get going. And instead, it's better to just be disciplined, hold back on that, and definitely do what the vital things are, but there needs to be a plan to that thing. And so now I have a friend who has DHANISHTA Nakshatra, and he's an Aquarius. And he's a very strange guy because he really exemplifies Aquarius tremendously. All of the lower self-image and things like that. And he's kind of a, I don't want to use the word a pervert, but he's a gambler, and he looks at sort of the sultry things in his life. So he likes to hang out at strip clubs and go gambling and go down to Mexico and drink and things like that. And I don't do any of that. So, but he told me this story. The guy's, he's absolutely rich, totally wealthy. And when he was like, I think he was old enough to go into a casino, so it must have been around 20 or 21 years old. And he walks into this casino and he has a silver dollar, and he walks up to a progressive slot and he just drops it in and pulls the handle. Nothing happens except the ring of lights go on around the game unit that he pulled. And all of a sudden the police come and gather around him and say, stay here. He didn't know what was going on. He won $6.5 million. $6.5 million. So of course, the way they treat you in Vegas is they put you up in, the penthouse suite, everything for days. They have to work through all of the, the transference of the money and check the cameras to make sure there was no cheating and everything. And to this day, the guy can, he doesn't have anything to do. He's never worked since 20. He just does whatever he wants to do, goes for a walk on the beach, and he usually gambles at least once or twice a week and never leaves without $4,000 to $10,000 in a win. So the guy owns houses all over the place. This is one of the things you'll see with DHANISHTA, that this expression that happens there. And what I like to say is when you look at DHANISHTA, DHANISHTA is related to how you do things. You know, what's the skill that you're using? So it shows as a strength that you have great skill in organizing the details of life in a way that brings wealth and sustenance. This guy knows everything, because that's all he's done, about how to manage the money. And he always makes more and more and more. And yet when you talk to him or you see him, you can't even imagine the guy would ever even have the capacity to do this. So you can see that he creates something out of nothing as if by magic. And especially if it's related to material prosperity. The guy's got a credit card with a bonus free meal card or discount card on everything he buys. So there's a strong adventurous nature, as I said, as well as keen powers of insight and perception. That shouldn't say our, it should say are always present in you. Sorry, I'll fix that in the slides afterward. The hidden spiritual nature of our material world does not elude you. You're just as comfortable earning money as you are performing deep mystical practices. Now, this guy, he's never done, he doesn't go to church, he hasn't done anything mystical. But one day I was teaching a meditation class and I invited him to come. And so I initiated him into Sahaj Samadhi meditation, mantra-based meditation from Art of Living. And Sahaj Samadhi means natural enlightenment. And he did it and loved it, but he never did it again. Like, he was shocked. He thought it would be nothing, and he used to make fun of it all the time. So then you start to get into the shadow issues, and this guy definitely exerts a lot and displays a lot of these shadow issues. So ruling planet Mars makes you a bit of a warrior. So you have to be careful acting too forcefully at times. Anger issues are possible with you. So you can just imagine his third house is Aries. And his siblings, his brother, he just gives him a tongue lashing all the time. And his mother, yep, takes the gloves off, and he's a vital enemy of his mother now at this point. And he can get angry and explosive in a moment, and all that stuff can come out. So he's also excessively materialistic because he's able to accumulate so much wealth. And he looks at other people as not having the capacity to do it, like they're stupid or something. But it's just this, this is like luck du jour. So he can become kind of ruthless at times, and he can lose the bigger picture, especially when it came to personal relationships. And I actually had a situation with him where he kept pushing something, putting it all over my Facebook page, and I just said, oh, come on, stop it. Just be a friend, not an a-hole. And of course, I didn't see him again for 2 or 3 years after that, which was fine with me. So the 23rd nakshatra, DHANISHTA, resides at that juncture point between Capricorn, that equidistant space, and Aquarius. And it means very rich, very swift, and ruled by Mars. Shows that high functioning of Mars is operating. Now, these are the 10th and the 11th signs. So we've already talked about the 10th sign as the career kind of thing. And his highest impact on the world and contribution and all of that. So his career is essentially just watching things happen, which is, it's very, very spiritual. The guy he's got a heart of gold when somebody needs something, which brings out the qualities of Aquarius. And, you know, when I look at Aquarius, it's pretty profound. So I go back and I look at, there was an event that took place back in 1982, which was called the Maharishi effect, where there were 7,000 people from around the world came together in one location in Fairfield, Iowa, in the domes that they built there for meditating and practicing the TM City program. And this was the Maharishi had expressed it to the world as this is like the washing machine for stress in the world. And what he had said was that if 1% of the world's population were to meditate, it would lower the crime rates all over the world. And so we did this 2-week period of time in Fairfield when it was like 64 below zero. It was so cold. And we gathered together for 2 weeks, I believe it was, and we meditated in these domes. And Maharishi called that super radiance, because it was about taking that silence and everything that you get from your meditation and putting it into a Aquarius thing, which is where it's for the benefit of all. And so for many years, actually in 1982, during those 2 weeks, we were reading the papers and the crime rate went down all over the world by 25%. And it's never gone back up since that time. So these have some kind of lasting effect. It literally changes the trends of time. So that's one of the things that the 11th sign of the zodiac relates to, which is the social interaction and the effect on society to be able to use a technique of mass, you know, pulling together all of the resources of silence that's equal to 1%. And the reason he used that formula is in physics. If you stimulate a system to behave orderly and just 1% of that system, it creates a phase transition, which causes the whole organism to flip over. And so one of the experiments was you take a whole bunch of pilings of iron filings and you just pull aside 1% of them and you magnetize those. And then you move it over closer to the other pile of those filings, and all of a sudden they all magnetize. It's called a phase transition. And so the whole idea was by bringing out more sattva into the world on a collective level, that we could alter the trends of time. And so that's a powerful thing and a powerful skill and a discipline that you can see coming from DHANISHTA. And with the 11th house, that's being, what's the highest ambition we would want for society? What do you want to accomplish with your power? What's the highest worldly gain and the excess and the stress that it could bring? And the only stress on it was getting into the dome before they locked the doors, because they started at a certain time. And if you weren't there right when it was time to start, you know, that was pretty stressful because you had gone a long way just to get there and the temperature was making it tough. But also, you know, doing that for other people is where it's like you take on a career in the Capricorn energy. And there were a whole group of people for many years that they were paid to be in the domes and meditate so that they could maintain those levels. And once the TM City program came out, which I talked about in Hasta, the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, once that was being practiced, there was a shift in the formula that said you only needed the square root of 1%. So a whole new career evolved for people that were being paid. And this literally happened for over 10 years while they had they had hundreds of Vedic priests all doing yagyas all day long while this was going on. So they were using all of this kind of DHANISHTA sort of expression that was happening. And you know what you see here is that your aspirations, your goals, your financial and material gains, your friendship, the impulse to do something, abundance and excess. So this is where we expand in life, and large groups of people are important. And planets here show that expansive nature. And so this was literally being used as a spiritual technology to influence the world. So everybody didn't have to meditate. And in Vedic times, when things were distorted, first of all, it was all the kings and the priests who were given this knowledge. And so when there was problem in a village, the Jyotishi, the Ayurvedic practitioner or doctor, and the Vedic priests who did all this, they would come and they would set up a tent in the middle of the village, and all they would do is do their program. And they would just meditate. And if there was a shortage of water, then it would start to rain. If the crops, had problems with insects, that would make the insects leave and all that. That was the technology that was deployed, and that was their job as the Vedic priests, the Vaidya's, and the Jyotishis. That's what they did. And so this has grown into an expressive technology. It's still going on in Fairfield, but it hasn't been used in over 20 years to influence the world the way it was back in the 1980s, 20, 30 years actually. So that's an important demonstration we can see. So there was literally a career that was made where your whole job was to be in the dome every day, meditate, and somebody kept roll. So you didn't get your stipend at the end of the month if you didn't do the work. So these relate to exactly the 10th and the 11th signs, whole new careers. Can you imagine that? We could certainly use this return to that bigger techniques. Now, DHANISHTA leads into SATABHISHA, which is that energy that comes from super radiance. It's like a magic that comes from the other world. So Aquarius is the outer structure. After we take all the skill of the inner structure and the emotions and all the serious commitments and everything, then we go into the Aquarius nature of the outer structure and our individual self-harmonizing with the collective. That's exactly what I described. Each individual self, they harmonized themselves, and the impact was on the collective. So this leads to social duties and structures. And that's what these people's job was. Their social duty and the structure was to always be there and to change the trends of time, to create a super radiant environment that brought about a phase transition across the world. And when we had the lockdown, there were massive meditations online being done. I know my teacher, Sri Ravi Shankar, was getting over 1 million people a day meditating with his guided meditations. That's another example of this super radiance that was going on. So the thing is in Aquarius, because there's that sort of self-negation that comes with the humility of Aquarius as an empowering key to higher awareness, it's because of that not having a sentence, a life sentence to be in servitude, which is the issue that can come up in Aquarius, is you can feel like you were a servant. And this was actually what led to the final demise of all this, not to mention all the money that was being poured in by the wealthy entrepreneurs who wanted to support this cause. But eventually all this started unwinding and coming apart because then they were no longer given a stipend. They had to go beg for the money. And so they would always have coffee meetings with everybody, and they don't drink coffee. So they did that so that they could talk to you. Could you help me out this month, and could you sponsor me for the month, as an example of that? And so the issue of Dhanishta is it welcomes any challenge, all that courage and daring nature, as well as the enthusiasm around it, that impulsive, disciplined, principled, and highly opinionated nature. And my friend, he's always sharing his opinions, and they're usually fairly humorous. So the ruling planet of Mars shows all that courage, that self-will, that strength of will, discipline. Also the hostility, you can get a little hot-headed, aggression, and this sort of black and white thinking. Whenever I think of Mars and Aries, I always think of like on-off switch. It's like it's either black or it's white. And once that switch flips, it doesn't always flip back the other way. And so that's related to the defense, vitality, the innocence of which of your awareness, and, the logic of your friends and brothers, as an example of that. You'll see all of these things coming together. So the deity, as the 8 Vasus, which are the deities. So these are the raw elements we talked about, and they're the terrestrial deities. They form your material life on earth, and they give abundance and wealth to it. Remember I said we're going to be looking at much more eccentric deities here, much more mystical. So they start with the terrestrial things of the world, the practical things, which are the building blocks of life that reside in Dhanishta. And it's about waiting to be arranged into many different perceptible forms. Exactly what I said. Here we all met on the earth. We gathered in a structure that would protect us, and we did our practices. And so we impacted sun, moon, earth, fire, space, wind, sky, and all the stars and everything. And it all becomes orchestrated into a great symphony. This is called the Star of Symphony. So you can see that orchestration of the laws of nature coming together here. And this is what we were actually doing. And not only was the physics being talked about, but on the Vedic level, we talked about the deities that would affect this, and how this 1% effect could become, this more cosmic effect of, reestablishing world order. And this was used in the time when in Iran, when the people were captive, and for all those months were held there. We sent a whole group of these people to be in Iran, surrounding the area where they were being held captive. And they had to stay in their hotel rooms, couldn't look out the windows. And all they did was their practices for like a month or so. And that was pretty intense, a very intense period of time. But these are the sort of expressions that we bring into the world that are very powerful. This is a powerful part of the zodiac that brings out control, and it can also bring out very powerful control over the emotions and all of those things. So now we move on to the flow of the mind. Wait a minute, I'm missing something in here. Did I? No, I got it. Okay. We flow on to SATABHISha. So SATABHISha means 100 medicines or doctors. And it shows this eccentric charge quality of Aquarius and its determination to find answers and natural healing capacity. So this is the result of what got created by the Dhanishta. So one of the things I like to say about Dhanishta is if you're disciplined and you do things in a powerful way that affects awareness, it's like saying the mantras perfectly. And the result is that it manifests the wealth of each of those. It literally brings those things into the world. And so SATABHISha is dealing with what happens after that manifestation happens. And so it's the deity is Varuna, and Varuna is the we talked about Apas in Purva Ashada being the feminine goddess of the water. Varuna is the counterpart of the water that's masculine. And this nakshatra happens at 6 degrees 40 minutes into 19 degrees 59 minutes in Aquarius. And it's ruled by Rahu. That's that eccentricity. The symbol is a circle, a flower, and again, it's a movable nakshatra, and Rakshasa. But this time it deals with sort of that gallantry of a horse, you know, that sort of equine dignity that you see in the horse, and the strength of itself, things like that, and how sort of well, it's just such a beautiful animal to see, the strength of it and the way, the grace that it moves and all of those things like that. So when I said Varuna being a water deity, so he's one of the Adityas and one of the most important deities from the Rig Veda. He's responsible for the seasons and the separation of day and night in cosmic order, restoring cosmic order. So like I said, the energy, the Rahu energy that was created because that was a skill that we wanted to bring into the world, is the manifestation and the character that rules SATABHISha. So that's establishing cosmic order. So once upon a time, Varuna and Mitra were lusting after the same nymph, and she chose Mitra. And so Varuna got a little bit excited and he released his seed. And that semen was captured in a pot, the kumbha. So this is a stimulated eccentric energy in this nakshatra that can be either lustful or motivated toward a higher income. Now, this is the thing you'll see in Aquarius. You can see this energy in Aquarius, and it definitely showed up in my friend. Even though I'm not sure he had SATABHISha, but like he spent all his time thinking about lustful things and spending his money moving in that direction. So you can see that, and as he's gotten older, he's started to move that from that sort of more immature behavior of Rahu toward a higher outcome, and he's becoming more practical about things in the world, but he's still kind of a non-believer. So in practice here with SATABHISha, we're dealing with that upper atmosphere getting charged with kinetic potential. And that's the good metaphor for this nakshatra. So just imagine these ionized clouds ready for a spark from heaven to come down from above. And so what we feel metaphysically is that it's a sense of being between two worlds, as if for many lifetimes. Does that like ring a bell? Think about the last year. Definitely kind of a SATABHISha year. Everything was charged. You see that because all of society was charged. And now we're trying to look at a way to bring everybody back together again. But for the last year, and maybe for lifetimes, we could feel as if we've been stuck. And so reconciling and healing the duality of life as we unfold higher in consciousness, states of consciousness, that's an important thing here. And this could lead to a worldly crisis that compels us to seek 100 doctors and move between this world and the other, similarly to the deity Varuna. So he separates the day from the night, and he keeps the seasons and the earthly rhythms intact. So we just look at 2020, and there's a whole expression. And right at the end of it, so I've been writing these nakshatras for 5 years, every day, putting them in my own teacher's private Facebook group, which is paid for. And just to give you an example of how charged things were, here I'm behind a wall that's being paid for, that's only being focused on a group of people who were studying Jyotisha. And it was SATABHISHA time. So I wrote this one, and I actually include it. You'll be able to read it because it's one of the texts that I included here today. And so I wrote this whole thing, and it was expressing what's really happening. So when you look at the frustrations everybody were having of being locked down, feeling like they're stuck between two worlds, everybody's sick, so they need some kind of healing capacity, but they don't want to take chemicals and drugs for it. They want to do it naturally. That's the essence of SATABHISHA. And it's where you're dealing with a crisis. You know, it can be, if you don't do something about it, it can become a major crisis in the world. And that's exactly what we just faced. The second I pushed the button to post it, Facebook blocked me for 10 days. And they gave me a little form that said, if you don't agree with what we said, tell us why. So I explained, and I pushed the button to send it to him, and it said, oh, well, we're not responding right now. So I was literally sentenced for doing this. I was censored, taken off for 10 days. Fortunately, I started teaching this class afterwards, so I didn't worry about it anymore. But so this is an example. We're just trying to get back to some sense of normalcy. And so all of us kind of sent a silent prayer out, please take, please protect me. This is where you reach out to your guru, to God, to whatever it is that you consider to be the spiritual value in your life, and you ask for assistance from the other world. This is just the intention of having it, just putting the mind to it and saying, please. And this is an air sign, so it has to do with this sort of, it's a fixed air sign, with this fixed way of always looking at things where we want to make sure that everybody is safe. We want to help the collective. And so these days, you have to be careful about what you put on any of the social media platforms, because they'll take you down, and they don't understand the sort of profundity of this kind of knowledge. So SATABHISHA is ruled by Varuna, god of the cosmic waters, and it has the power of healing. Beshaja Shakti, which reflects upon its name as SATABHISHA, or holding 100 medicines. So its basis above is an extension or pervasiveness overall, and its basis below is the support for all. So these three make the world free of calamity. Very interesting. So that was the whole purpose behind the gathering of the groups, to create the super resonance. Now I want to share another thing, and a different one. It was in the summertime, and at that time there was a satellite falling out of the heavens, was going to crash down on the earth, and they didn't know where it was going to come down. Everybody was afraid it might land in a big city or something like that. And so we had this gathering of people in Fairfield, and it was like July, I believe it was, June or July. And we started to do our practice, and over the loudspeaker, they said, now when we're ready to begin the TM City program, what we want you to do is have everybody have an intention that this satellite will go down in the ocean and not hurt anybody. And so we did that. We meditated, and then right before we started the TM City program, we all held this attention for a few seconds, and then we let go. And within, I think it was like 2 days, the satellite came down and landed in the ocean. And whether that was happenstance or whatever, we definitely did something. We did something eccentric. We sent an intention out collectively of over 7,000 people with this intention to have that come. And there's this saying in the Vedic knowledge, the means gathers around sattva. So here we were all in this sattvic situation, and these are the sattvic nakshatras in the region of the zodiac, the last 4 signs from flowing from Sagittarius to Pisces. So this is literally a demonstration of SATABHISHA. So the strengths are here is that you're very organized thinker and worker, and that's what happens. It organizes the mind. Meditation brings the mind to a unified state of restful alertness, where the mind is completely alert, but the body's completely in a deep state of rest, like after 8 hours of sleep. And so this is the ability to maintain the dignity and composure under pressure, and that works for you in a favor. It's because you've organized your thinking and your actions for it through meditation. And the result coming out of that is the SATABHISHA. So your ability to arrange, harmonize, and expand upon the details brings management success in your career. This is how we manage the trends of time, the negative tendencies that were expanding everywhere. That was during the year when New York had more murders than ever at any time. And we had, what was it, Mayor Koch, who was always on Saturday Night Live all the time. And you know, they were able to take care of that whole thing, whether Koch had something to do with it or whether it was a collective consciousness thing. That was the way people were thinking in those days. So esoterically, these skills make you a gifted healer of yourself and others. So you also possess a very mystical mind and one connected to searching for life's deeper mysteries. Those are all invasion things of Rahu. You know, you want to invade life. You know, we have this belief that this world is real, but everything about Jyotisha is that it's all illusion. We're only here to be the sakshat. We're only here to observe the lessons we haven't yet learned. All of it is an illusion. Completely opposite from Western astrology. Where, you know, it actually believes that you're a character, you know, you're a hero going on a journey, and spirituality, maybe not. Vedic astrology, it's all spiritual. It's spirit taking form, and the duplicity of life that comes from spirit and form. So the shadow issues of this is that your eccentric viewpoint may be an isolating factor, as few people will naturally grasp your progressive thinking. Take the time to explain things carefully and slowly. Okay, I have a prime example of this. All of this stuff I've been talking about, of this group meditations, was all done in private. Nobody really knew much about it. Well, probably one of the biggest mistakes is that Maharishi held a press conference which was shown on national news, people hopping around on foam inside these domes and doing these super normal abilities, as they were called. And oh my God, the press had a field day with that. And we lost more meditators than I can ever imagine. I had a 1% city in a little town called Berlin, Wisconsin. I had doctors, lawyers, dentists, all these business people that I recruited from the Lions Club to take TM. They loved it. As soon as they saw that on the news, they said, I can't be associated with any of that. And so they completely just quit, as an example of it. So you must be careful with depression and loneliness and simply living to perform life's humdrum duties. You may be too sacrificial, allowing yourself to be victimized. That's exactly what it felt like. This big depression set in because a lot of people said, oh, this is crazy. And now these days, we're seeing even crazier things than this coming out. The technologies that are about ready to be revealed for all of us are gonna make this look like you know, a day at camp. So don't forget to take care of yourself. Your life needs a spiritual direction, or else isolation and paranoia can set in. So the interpretation of SATABHISHA, the 24th nakshatra of the zodiac, and it sits in the center of Aquarius, where the outer structures take form in a practical, concrete fashion. Oh shoot, I don't know how I overlooked this one. So SATABHISHA doesn't have anything to do with the later victory. I'm sorry. What I did is I cloned the other ones, and then I must have missed going in and taking that section out. I'll fix that after this session. But SATABHISHA is really searching for a cure for what ails you. Whatever the thing is that's affecting society, we want a cure. Everybody is in this state right now. So you see the dispersal of vaccinations and people wanting to feel safe. And then you see all these other things that people are doing. And, you know, one thing that's really important from yoga is that viruses can't live in an oxygenated environment. So if you're doing lots of pranayama, Bhastrika, alternate nostril pranayama, or practices like Sudarshan Kriya, things like that, where they're heavily involved with the breath work. This is, you know, and this is an air sign, so it deals with moving air, if you will. And when you look at it from the real concrete, practical way of it, and how this can heal everybody, is that, you know, all these other practices we can do without. You can go without eating for a while, you can go without drinking for a while, you can go without yoga for a while, but what's the one thing that you cannot go without? How long can you hold your breath? And so breath is the one unique thing that is the healing remedy to affect all of these things. I mean, it's your breath. And it's the vital part of you. Like we go back to the very beginning, Ashwini, what happened? You get slammed on the rear when you're first born and you take that first breath in and life comes into the body. Here we use the life force. We use the skills, the Vedic tools, in order to bring healing for everyone. So that's the key thing about SATABHISHA, is avoiding sort of big crises that can come about in our life through coming up with eccentric technologies and understanding that heal people. So literally that brings about 100 medicines. You know, this deals with natural healing kinds of things. So that's extremely important. So this shows all that sort of charged nature and the quality of Aquarius that's determined to find those answers for natural healing capacity. So that's the way to understand that. And then dealing with keeping the rhythms of the world intact. Rhythms. And that's exactly what the deity Varuna does here. And so his whole job is to, under that watchful eye, is to replenish and heal the world. And so these techniques affect these deities, these subtle levels of prana, which are personified with names to them. But they're really, this shows the characteristic of natural law and how getting in tune with natural law. So you're hearing all of the mantras, which are bringing the rhythms. And then DHANISHTA, how do you use those things? What's the courage? How do you use the discipline of it? And it flows to create the effect of healing in society. And that's SATABHISHA that we deal with. All right. So that brings us to the end of the 3 nakshatras that we're going to talk about right now. And so it'll give us a little bit of time to be able to dig down into some charts and people that have this on their in their charts. So let me back out. And let's open up the mic for people that would like to, who have it in their charts, who would like to see this, like to talk about it in their own. So, in their chart. I have everybody here. So Melanie has, let's see, make sure I'm on the right one. It's not Melanie. So Melanie doesn't have it, but it doesn't mean you're not experiencing these in your life. So if there's something that's a candid message you would like to share on something that I commented on and laid the background out on, that's something important. Now here's Kathy. She's got Mars and Moon both in SATABHISha, so we need to hear from her. And then let's see what Amanda's got. Amanda's Uttarashada. So Amanda, we'll have some stuff for you in the next nakshatra session. But you can also, anyone can comment based on what they've experienced in their life. And Arvis, which I'm not sure Arvis is here today, but he has DHANISTA SHRAVANA. He has a lot of SHRAVANA, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter in DHANISTA. So it'd be great to hear from him if he's here, but let me check and see. Doesn't look like he's here. No, he's not. All right, so who would like to comment? I mean, surely there's got to be some.
I would.
Okay.
I will. Kathy.
Yeah. Let's go back.
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if you just want a short synopsis, because I have, two major planets in that in SATABHISha. I pronounce it different ways, but anyhow, when I was a young person, I knew that I was here to help other people. I knew that's what life was all about. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. And I started helping the mentally retarded when I was in high school. That's what they were called at that time.
Yeah.
And even in volunteer work like that. But I've always had been interested in all sorts of healing, very strange stuff, and looking for the deep mysteries. I mean, I know they're out there, and I'm determined to find out how to use them, and I have,
Yeah.
And I have a deep connection to the spirit world, and I'm actually using astrology for timing, but I actually have many deceased loved ones telling me bits and pieces about my future, and it does come true.
Yeah.
But I just have to use astrology to kind of see when it's going to come true. And I've always had this very, very, very keen attraction to future prediction, even though my mind could not wrap around how the past, the present, and the future are all up to us. You know what I mean? On
Yeah.
the mental or psychic realm or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do use crystals for healing, even though I know you've expressed that everybody believes in some. I'm going to tell you this. If somebody tells me they saw a flying saucer, and so if you hear anything from me about any kind of powers or whatever, it's tried, true, and tested by me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
no one
Well,
should doubt what I say, because I'm the biggest skeptic of them all.
yeah, no, that's an example of using natural remedies.
Go ahead.
If you're looking to fix things just by wearing a ring or something like that, but what you're talking about is that's a very using crystals.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, using crystals is very a very
I
profound.
can't hear you right now. Just a moment.
Just a second here. I have to take the microphone off in order to.
Now I
hear
can
you.
hear you. I'm on a satellite connection. I had trouble hearing you.
What I was saying about the external things, like a small gem that you're wearing on your body, is much different than using like crystals that can be cultivated for effect. They're extremely powerful for healing, and that's the kind of energy, the psychic energy. And I think you're pretty psychic. You know, when I look at SATABHISHA with Moon and Mars there, I can't see anything but that happening, and that healing capability. So when you mention crystals and all those things, I would say absolutely. And it's so dharmic for you. It also brings your career and all your
And also,
value, how you work with people, all to that spot in your most creative expression of your dharma. It's really beautiful. You really delivered it in a very clear way as you were describing it.
also, I was attracted to astrology at 12 years old. I've been studying it, that, you know, so I know it's a very much a past life thing. And I've studied all aspects of astrology, and it's mostly self-study. I'm very little classes I've taken. And also the shadow side, being victimized. I mean, I was talking to a friend about this, that I sit quietly in a nation and people try to bully me because they think, oh, I don't know why, but they do. Since I was a child, you know, like a bully on the school bus or whatever. And currently, I'm leasing this beautiful house on Mount Shasta, and the ownership has just changed. And now the realtor and the new owner are trying to you know, I'm being victimized because they think, oh, poor woman with a blind man, that she looks so sweet and innocent, and they don't realize how powerful I am. And I'm not going to let myself be victimized, but it attracts me somehow. You know what I mean? And it's probably something karmic. I'm trying to figure out why that happens. And I'm trying to make sure I cover all these things, but anyhow, I'm very much into self-healing. I've often known what's wrong with me just intuitively. I'm an intuitive healer as far as medical intuitive also. So there's many facets to this nakshatra. And also, I've had 2 different major relationships with people with the same nakshatra, and I've read that it's a difficult nakshatra, probably because of Rahu.
Yeah.
And one of them is a person much like me, but a gay man. But we kind of have trouble getting along sometimes because we're so opinionated. You know what I mean? I'll tell you, if you get 2 SATABHISHA together, it's a big deal. And then now there's a new one that wants to form a strong relationship with me, but I'm seeing the lustful side and not the high ambition for healing and so forth. So I don't understand why that occurs. You know, why can somebody have such a spiritual part of this nakshatra and another person can have the lustful part and not really care? They're a healer though, but they have not encompassed all their abilities the way they should. And I know that I'm here to help that person. That's what's tricky.
Yeah, well, you can see the Rahu can bring an immaturity in that approach, you know, and it distorts it because of the obsessions that a person has. And you're more psychic. You're not, you know, relying on those things, those desires, because this is a dharmic thing for you. This is a powerful, creative way, and it's linked to your past life merit. That's why, you know, it's serious business for you. Absolutely. It's about expressing those skills and just sort of invading into the ways people think and the way people heal, and that psychic nature for you just understands it. you know, the Rahu can just, the thing is it can put up a big smoke screen of toxicity. And that may just be what's shaping the energy of these people that turn it into lustfulness, because it's like, you know, they just crave that Rahu energy. And how it manifests is affected by, you know, where it is in their chart and some of the other planetary arrangements, maybe what's opposite it, what could be coming out of Leo, for example, with this person. So look at what's in front of it that can influence and goes into it, and then what's after it. So for you, you know, the fourth, that inner sensitivity and that peace, the property, all the things you described, flows into the fifth, and then it becomes your heart's desire that you want to create something with. Then that comes out into a bunch of work, you know, difficult things that you want to do, because what you're the most passionate about is what you would work the hardest for. And then you should look opposite of that into 11th house, where you have ambitions and all of those things, and deal with, you know, larger collectives and those things that, you know, are the goals and ambitions that you've wanted in your life. When you look at somebody from that perspective, considering what's opposite them, what's opposite their ascendant, you know, and what's before it, look at where the area is you're diagnosing, then you'd have to kind of look at their chart and see, oh, I see where that goes on here. And you can look at your 7th house as an example of that. It'll show,
Yeah.
you know, you have the K2 and the sun energy there, and it's a powerful sun of seeing beyond the veils. You know, and you're in a K2 period right now, so withdraw from those kinds of people that are like, you know, running around like a bunch of wild horses. You know, that K2 part of you
Yeah,
wants.
part of me just wants to be really strong and say, I'm sorry, but I just can't do this at this time in my life, and I have other goals, and I'm ready to be the hermit with no relationship whatsoever, because too many people try to interfere with what I could be doing. You know what I mean? I've been helping everybody for a lifetime, and I'm trying to be brave enough to decide what to do. You know what I mean? Have you ever encountered go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish what you said.
I just say, have you ever encountered I see with each new person expect a new lesson, and do I really want this lesson? Do I really need it? And I feel like somebody's bowling balls at me. Okay, here it comes. Here's your new lesson, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially because Venus rules your 8th house. You know, you don't see it coming. And that's related to the things that other people do once they get connected to you. They like go into a black hole, and that becomes, you know, that becomes a difficult thing to deal with. That's why you have that Venus in your 6th house. And you have essentially you have the 6th house, the 8th house ruler in the 6th. So sudden, shockingly, these kinds of things just disappear for you. Have you noticed? If you just trust, if those difficult things that
I'm trying to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that, but my mind is just I think too much at times, and I analyze too much. So, you know,
yeah. And plus you were born in a Kalasarpa. And so there are definitely a lot of ups and downs and things like that. And, you know, you can see that, you know, life expands in that way, and it retracts when you're dealing with other people. it could make you, you know, with the withdrawal of it, or else you become extremely experienced with it. And now you're just being intelligent about how you deal with people. Since Aries is full of like a bunch of sharp-minded people, you can see those kinds of energies manifesting there. But I think you encapsulated exactly what's going on, and the more you embrace your impact on the world as a psychic, because you really are, you have a tremendous amount of, you know, deep connectivity and, you know, sort of an unboundedness that comes from your Mars and Scorpio, and also related to the 7th house of wanting, you know, to take that devotion, that deep unbounded devotion, and use it, but use it in a healing way, in a more disciplined way. Yeah, it's a beautiful chart. I like what you're expressing. Yeah, and you're a very transformational person. Your whole interests are all about that. Everything you care about, everything you described is absolutely there. You know, you're a perfectionist about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, that's my middle name. I can't accomplish enough because I'm not good enough. I'm not doing it well enough, you know.
Yeah, well, you're just
Well, thank
more,
you.
it's the self-negation of Aquarius that makes you feel like you're not doing enough. But you're really diving in. You're really in going deep into all that stuff. And you're that nature, you know? Yeah, it's cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, you're welcome. It's too bad we don't have several lifetimes in one, isn't it?
I've had it a couple lifetimes, killed and brought back to life again. So yeah, sometimes I wish that
Okay.
it didn't all happen in this life, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Let's see who else we have here. I don't know, did Vicky make it here today? I don't see her in the list. Probably not. Vicky doesn't have anything to add because she doesn't have any nakshatras there. Let's see. So who else would like to share?
I have K2 and SHRAVANA. And so, what?
I said hi, Susan.
Hi.
I was trying to pull your chart up here, but it wasn't coming up earlier before I started the class.
So I want to share that having K2 and SHRAVANA, I feel, gives a very like obsessive flavor. You said devotion. It's devotion, but I would take it to the extreme of obsession. I have a very obsessive form about me where I just hone in. Like, for example, I can hone in on people's like skill sets. And so I can see what they would be really, really good at. The thing is that I have to just like learn how to shut up and let people ask me.
You mean you tell them before they have a chance to even ask?
I've had that, yes. I've had that. So I'm learning to just like wait for the invitation, you know.
And you said that's in SHRAVANA, right?
SHRAVANA, yeah.
Yeah, you're a great listener then.
Yeah. I'm usually listening. So the thing that you said about either having music playing in your mind, I get that all the time. Like I'll wake up with like song lyrics playing. And so that's really interesting. So it's either I'm totally in silence or I'm listening to some sort of music.
Yeah. Are you noticing any kind of manifestations that are happening? Are you able to like manifest things from that silence?
Can you explain?
Well, the thing, it's like when you, it's like I said with the Sanskrit, when you pronounce the Sanskrit, you're invoking the sonic structure of the sound. It literally manifests, becomes subtle energy that's expressed, and it comes through that gap I talked about of Ritam Parapragya. So it takes all of Purana, which is that sort of frozen potential to become something, and it energizes it. It makes it start to manifest. So when you're doing that scrutiny with the K2 energy, and you're really like really drinking it all in, you're really experiencing all of it. And actually, if you pay attention, you'll see things that may be coming even from like past lives showing up. And
Definitely.
a lot of people you used to know when you were younger may be appearing in your life or writing to you or things like that is also, or you might hear things that you were told to you over and over and over and over again, kind of thing. But it's also a deep
And it's
pulling
in the
through.
8th house.
What's that?
And it's in the 8th house.
Ah, there you go. Boy, great change, great transformation. So you don't see it coming, I guess, is what you're saying. It just sort of happens all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think that I have a lot of, I'm a natural manifester. So the thing is, though, I have been really manifesting all of my fears lately. And so that's been really interesting and hard.
It's probably because of Saturn there.
Is Saturn still there right now?
Oh yeah, it's going to be there another year.
Oh my God.
2.5 years in Capricorn, and it was last March that Saturn went there and Jupiter joined it. And then Jupiter left for a while and came back, and Jupiter's getting ready on April 5th. It's going to go into Aquarius until September 14th. So a lot of hope is going to come back, a lot of hope and inspiration, and a sense of social inspiration along with that. So Jupiter does well there, but the Saturn, it's been a year, so it's got another year and a half that it's going to spend in Capricorn before it goes into Aquarius. So you'll be dealing with a lot of transformation. But the thing to remember about 8th house is it's imagined fears. And
Well, all fears are imagined.
what's that?
I said all fears are imagined.
That's
We're
right.
really our worst enemies.
That's right. That's right. And so, but the fear is always in the 8th house. It's psychological, and it has to do with if you're trying to be practical, serious, committed, all those things, what's there to fear? The fear that comes up in the 8th house is what could happen, what you think might happen. It's always future bound. And Saturn's always about time, right now, we're right here. Stop talking about the future. Time could run out at any moment. And 8th house, so that what fear is, I always say, false evidence appearing real. And if you notice, whenever you're afraid, it never happens. You just think it might. And so you start feeling vulnerable, and you're dealing with all the insecurities that 8th house brings you. But now we're talking about it from a deeper mystery standpoint. So now you look at your K2, that metaphysical energy that's there, which is shockingly transforming you by whatever comes from Sagittarius and the beliefs in your life that go into how do you put those into action? How do you practice those? And it's in the first part of Uttarashada and Purvashada where you get set up so that you have a victory with that. And then SHRAVANA comes from all of the listening to all of what that does, how that enlivens spirit, and how concrete that is, even though it's eighth house. So if I look at, other signs, for example, and when I look at my eighth house, which is in Leo, I have Sun, Moon, and Mercury there in that order. Mercury's in Purva Palguni, Moon is in Purva Palguni, and Sun is in Magha. And every time I want to take a trip to go see family or friends, there's always something going on. Like right now, I'm getting ready to take a major trip, and there's all these predictions and forecasts of these storms coming in through the south, going all the way up through the east coast. And we've had these weird storms this year. So I postponed things as a result of it. But what I always do is before I go, I'm always looking at my dashas to see what's the potential. And when I had first understanding, I had to start asking what the heck happened. And that's what you ask in the eighth house. It's like, wait a minute, what just happened? And then when you start researching it, you go, oh my God, that's what it was. And you see a deeper aspect of a reality that unfolds out of that. And you realize it doesn't have anything to do with your fears. It's just karma, and we're just sitting watching it. The more you observe and witness those things, that's the most important thing. Stop believing that all of it is real and see it more as it's just a movie. My teacher always said the big chart, your birth chart is the movie of whoever, the movie of Kathy, the movie of Melanie, the movie of Susan. And the Vimshotri is the script to the movie. And when you look at it that way and you really start paying attention to these nakshatras instead of the planets, you'll see what the real spiritual movement is that's behind it all. And digging down into these nakshatras and writing about them, you'll start to see some amazing things that you've never known about yourself. And a lot of them, based on you, is coming out of that area of your eighth house. And
I feel like when I write like predictively and things like that, I feel like a lot of times it's really about me reading what I'm writing, because I'm kind of like, I'm just the channel that's bringing out this information, but it's really something that I need to like listen to and pay attention to,
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. Everything that we're doing in life, we're doing for ourselves. It's our lesson. It's our observation. Yeah, and eighth house kinds of things, if you put it aside for a while and you come back and read it many years later, and I'm moving now, and I've been carrying stuff with me for 30 years and 2 marriages. And I just went through a cathartic experience of my eighth house where, I started pulling stuff out that I had written years ago, and I'm like, oh my God, how did I miss this? And it was always stuff that would come out when you had whatever it was that brought you to your knees in the eighth house. Like something sudden, shocking comes, and you want to blame the other because it is about their values, not yours. And you have no control over it. And I also like to say that eighth leads into ninth. So in the ninth is where the divine is like watching you. And one of the things the divine always gets a big kick out of is when you say, my house, my property, my car.
It's very true.
The divine is like going, well, let's just see if she thinks she's in control. And if you struggle and you try to control it instead of trusting, then the divine says, well, she hasn't learned that lesson yet. But if you just trust and let go, I always say eighth house brings you to your knees for one of two reasons. One is because you're struggling to control it, and it will just grind you to a pulp. And so when it takes you to your knees, it destroys your belief in the world. And it's just that energy of the karaka of the eighth house of Saturn. And if you trust, then you're brought to your knees in prayer and thanks that you actually experienced a big transformation that showed you something deeper in life. And then the divine from the ninth house says, oh, there's somebody who trusts. And then you can't affect the ninth house through will. There's no way to make the ninth house do anything you want. It comes from divine will. And so if you trust, the divine says she trusts, and it gives you grace for no reason at all. Luck, grace, money, all kinds of things like that.
It's true because it's the dharmic house. So 1, 5, and 9, the dharma houses, it's really about our higher self playing the strings, if that makes sense.
You're right, and you're evolving, Everything's evolving. The chart is evolving. The planets are evolving. The nodes are evolving. Nothing is what it was when you were born, but that's how you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
That's your.
Well, the ego feels that way. The little ego feels that way.
Yeah, that's right.
I think when we surrender to our higher self, that's when we really truly align to our dharma, but it's the conditioned ego is very hard to kind of like maneuver because it's so ingrained in our psychology,
Yeah.
So
what do you have in Leo?
What about the moon?
You have the moon there, okay.
Yeah. What's interesting? You're
all
moving
your
to Florida.
all your values are your interests.
Yeah, well, having the moon in the third house is really about writing and really having big desires, so.
Also extremely like psychic, Ajna Chakra. You've got, where's your sun?
The sun is in Kritika.
In Taurus or in Aries?
In Aries. In the 11th house with Mars in Bharani.
In Bharani.
The Mars is, yeah. And what's interesting about the Mars, because it's the Amatyakarka, a lot of my friends have been in the like cops and things like that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, very alert people. Always on the lookout.
Yeah, Martian energy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just really beautiful when we get together as groups. For me, this is the most fun part of the whole session because it comes alive, it gets grounded, and like if we look at Kathy, for example, and we play the formula out that I showed on the ends of the slides, where you look at your moon nakshatra, and that's related to the emotional mind and the psychological temperament and what you seek in order to be peaceful. So I don't have any of you used the hero's journey and done your own chart with the moon and the sun, and it's really powerful when you do it. And if you just spend time and look at the sun, you'll see the kind of nurturing you got from the father. And like for me, just as an example, my son is in Leo. My father was a Virgo. and we were very close because we were a lot alike. And my son is in Mugga, so the family lineage was really important. He wanted me to inherit his business, all of that. But my father also told me a lot of things. My ninth house, Mercury, he communicated a lot of things to me, and that also is exemplary of father. And he always wanted the best for me. But he was kind of a narcissist, a little bit. He was a PhD in plant pathology, coming as a Virgo. That's a definitely interesting sign to be born into. But I could also see his overpowering nature and how he used to punish me in his 12th house for him. He used to really punish me sometimes for just little things that I did, and he never did it to my brothers or sisters. And it taught me a lot about what it meant to with that son, and then also, that emotional part that he would bring out in me from the seventh in there, as well as deep explanations he would give me from the ninth house, as an example. And when you put those planets, the moon and the sun, and go through that part, because the next week when we do this, I've changed what I'm gonna present here on the slide that's on here right now of the hero's journey, and I added a little bit more, and I'm encouraging everybody when we go through the ninth class that we actually put this into action, because when you're doing readings for people, you can just do a nakshatra reading. You can have a spiritual reading with the people, and you can tell them everything about their spiritual nature. And it's just uncanny. And so I've done that when I do coaching with people now and mentoring with them. I'll take them on for a year, and I have two programs, one where they're dealing with something very important in their life they want to transform. Like a few years back, when the payday loans, remember they were taking advantage of people that were poor and underprivileged, and also minorities. Where they needed money, they would loan them money and charge them ungodly sums. So they were basically in prison their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the wife of that husband knew that the husband was corrupt and that he was being investigated. So 2 years before they were taken down, she came and started 2 sessions a month meeting, and started building a strategy for how to overcome and get out of it before all the judgments came down and he was arrested. And she was able to get free of all that a year ahead, and she was not held culpable because she was married to the guy. And then using the one a month, you work with people to help them understand themselves, and there's so much you can do starting with this. And also the Titi Pravesh is another beautiful thing to show why they were born and what their job is here, how they're going to be used as an instrument. And you can progress that every month and talk about it. And then you talk about the houses each month. And you let them understand, well, this is your identity. And then the next month, these are the things that you value. And they never think about it. And those kind of coaching programs have profound effects on people. With Jyotisha, you do their chart reading, and then after that, you really get into the intimacy of who they are. And when you do just a pure nakshatra reading for them, they're like speechless when you get done.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You know what I wonder? I wonder if there's a way to use Jyotish to see people's attachment styles. Because then if we could figure out a way to, we would be able to help a lot of people that are having relationship issues if we were able to figure out what patterns suggest like an anxious or a secure attachment style.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the whole relationship thing is so deep. I mean, there's just so, it's much more than just, you know, pulling up the numbers of the relationship, you know, the kutas and things like that. You really have to go pretty deep into all of the things and looking at the knots, you know, that show up in the relationship, and you know how you're bound to each other at the hip, or you know, there's just a lot of detail in there about what causes the problems. And when you're dealing with the attachments, yeah, that's an interesting, you know, it's an interesting discussion, because you need to look at the fixed signs and see what goes on there where they're stubborn and resistant. And yeah, it's a real, it's so deep. That's what I love about Jyotish, because you can hit one layer and then you can come back the next month and go deeper into that. And as the nakshatras and the moon and sun are moving every single month, that's going to absolutely shape the whole story that's unfolding before them. Then you really feel like you're watching a movie. You're watching it unfold.
Yeah.
And the whole world feels like that right now. Look at everything that's bringing your attention to what's going on in the world. It's just unbelievable.
It's really a crazy time.
It's totally crazy. My gosh. Yeah, and you can't really find out much because everything's censored. Anything that you want to really know is being hidden from you. And if they're censoring, it shows that there's something truth about it, or else they wouldn't hide it. And, you know, that's kind of, that's a little bit aligned with what you were just talking about. You know, there's something going on there that we're not being allowed to see, because it's so obvious, but it's being sort of manipulated. And it doesn't matter. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything other than energies of light and dark. It's not related to people, you know, it's not related to politics. It's something really cosmic that we're going through. And, you know, I hardly ever look at the big planets, the outer planets, but you got to look at them when you're looking at the bigger picture here. And you know,
Yeah,
Pluto,
like Pluto especially.
yeah, Pluto, Lord of the underworld, and you know, investigations, political scams, all that stuff, but also technologies that are going to come out. That's all platonic stuff. And so it's been kind of fun just playing around with that idea, because when you think of it, 800, I think it's 850 years ago, we had the same conjunction that's going on in Capricorn. And that was during the Crusades that took place. You know, and in many ways, we kind of have a crusade going on in the United States and around the world. Everybody's trying to get out of lockdown. They're resisting against the power structures all over the world, people marching, no more masks, no more quarantine, no more. That's, you know, that's never happened to us in our life. And, you know, that's a platonic thing. That's pretty atomic when you look at it. And so, yeah, we're in a fun time. And we're in a time also of great renaissance, just like 60 years ago when Saturn and Jupiter came together and all the Indian gurus, the big gurus from India came to the West. And, you know, the Beatles and the Stones brought rock and roll along with all the other characters that were there. And, you know, those of us who grew up in the hippie generation, and social change and ending wars, you know, there's a lot of that same energy playing out right now, but in a much more interesting way. And I wonder if you see the what we've all gone through and what it's done for our intelligence, because we've had to stop running to get through life, sit down and look at what's real. And not what we're being told, but that in Capricorn's where you sit down and you commit and you look. And, you know, you look at things like mountains, tunnels, and caves. And you'll see those are the three biggest factors that are underlying what's going on right now.
I just find it interesting. I feel we're going through a very Plutonian time for sure. Rahu and Ketu are really having a field day, you know, with us.
Yeah.
Because we've had a lot of Kalasarpas lately, right? And
Yeah.
so that brings in truly like very karmic lessons that we were always meant to experience, right?
That's right.
And so I feel that we're, as a society, not really looking at the real issues at all. You know, those real issues are really deeply rooted and underneath the surface, and no one's really trying to like bring light to them. Especially, you know, suicide rates, they've gone up tremendously, and no one's really talking about that.
Yeah. No, anything that's real is not being discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Rahu Ketu in Gemini Sagittarius was about fake news and our beliefs. You know, where we were scrutinizing our beliefs, or should have been and weren't, because there was more of a big tendency of blind believing and not questioning it, because, you know, I belong to this, therefore it's always that, and I'll never question that. And then on the other hand was just a bunch of smoke screen, a lot of lies, nobody listening, and a lot of fake news. Because Gemini is all about truth, facts, you know, figures, and trying to understand what is real, what is true. And Rahu is just whipping that up. And you can see the same thing that happened from 9/11. You know, that was the last time it was there, almost 20 years ago. And now when it moves into Taurus, at least things are settling down. That I feel much more at peace now with people. You know, it's like you just look at somebody and then they start mouthing off at you. And so I've always kind of stayed in my cave and just dealt with the practical things and did readings for people and stuff like that to help them understand it. But
you know, I think that Jupiter and Saturn together, when the energies come together, it brings up a lot of like self-righteousness in the world, or
yeah.
for people who have that in their chart, you know. So
Yeah. Well,
I think that
a lot of people have been calling me, telling me they want to kill themselves, and
it's
I
really
just yeah, and I just keep saying to them, no, 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 look at this, look at this, look at this, and it's a lot of the Mars for like Sag people. It's a lot of the Mars things going on right now.
mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of Sag people calling me, oh, Jeff, I just don't think I can hang on. I think I just want to end it. And I'm like,
It's hard. It's a hard time.
yeah. But I always say to them, why? Why would you do that? You're just going to come back and have to repeat it all. It's like, just go through it. People don't want to deal with difficulty. You know, fix it, stop it. What do I got to do? Make it stop. Go through it. It's karma.
Well, yeah, you know, that's what I teach. I teach you're not supposed to get rid of the fears. You're supposed to walk through them. You're supposed to face them. They're there for you to grow.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
just people, when they go through their Saturn cycle, some people, it's just, you know, I'm looking forward to mine. It's coming up. My Saturn Mahadash is coming up in 2024. And, you know, there's just amazing things about it. Like I got diabetes in 2007 on the exact day my Jupiter Mahadasha started running, and I have Panarva Su with Jupiter and Ketu in Gemini as my 6th house. And it took me, I didn't understand, I wasn't diabetic, and just, inflammation and everything started in the body, and boom, it happened. And when we start to look at, we think we're running our lives. We think we're picking the things that are happening. And we're not watching and witnessing and observing what's happening. And for me, that's the mantra. The whole thing is a show. It's all a Leela. It's all just a dance. And when you can sit and witness and observe and notice, that's when evolution happens, because you're not, everybody mostly just wants to be happy, and they don't like what's happening because it's not what they want. And so what you see is resistance there, and what you resist persists. So observing, watching, witnessing, those are the main words you hear in all the Vedas. Everything is about witnessing what is happening, and then noticing why it happened, all that stuff. And we're more needed by the world than at any other time right now, is to have Jyotishis like this group out there helping people. And the nakshatras can be the turning point for a lot of those people, if you share what it is that you're seeing from it. And but I just think it's the best profession that you could ever have.
I love astrology. I've always loved astrology, but I think that people are usually drawn to astrology in order to understand themselves better.
Absolutely.
So it's a real discovery tool, and it's available for everyone. And so in that sense, there is hope, right? There's a lot of hope.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, being able to, part of the hope and inspiration is going to come back as you're noticing a lot of the mandates are dropping everywhere. And so people are able to get out, and they're just hoping it'll be over. And that's a little bit debilitated, but it's better in Shravana than it was when it was in Uttarashada, because it was just too much of a debilitation of Jupiter energy. But Jupiter becomes more practical about things like money and, dealing with your fantasies and things like that oftentimes just get distorted into these big fearful adventures. And, there's really nothing to fear here. It's like you just go through it. You live every day, you do your best, you do your practices. And, we lived most of our life that way before we learned to be Jyotishis. And now we scrutinize everything, which is fun.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Jeff.
Yeah,
Do
Kathy.
you have any words on that little extra nakshatra? I can't even pronounce it. Abhijit or whatever. It's a part of SHRAVANA, isn't it part of that, or somewhere right in there?
Yeah, it's such a short degree that if something doesn't sit on top of it, it behaves a lot like Uttarashada. That's my understanding of it and feeling of it. And I've only seen it used by somebody like 1 or 2 times when actually something was really happening right in Abhijit. But for the most part, it's such a small degree point. And in my experience, it's just like maybe a slightly exalted Uttarashada, but it's not that different from it, which is why I don't really use it at all, because you're going to see it express itself in Uttarashada to Shravana and in that little gap there. And I don't know, it just seems more sensational to me than practical. And I just haven't seen a good demonstration of it that would make me implement it. So I mostly look past it. because it just, if you research it and go into it and online, you'll see it has the same qualities of both of them. So that manifesting nature of Shravana, but also all of those skills and things that you go through in order to have the later victories. They both come together there.
I think it's a very mystical and metaphysical one. That's why it's not even part of the system, really.
Yeah. But you know, it fits there because that is the Purushartha that expresses itself, those 4 signs there, in very sattvic way. So it's well situated. It would be strange to see it like over between Aries and Gemini, for example, or Cancer, I'm sorry, because of the Rajasic nature of all that. You know, and it doesn't really fit in the Leo to Scorpio realm because that's all tamasic, where you're protecting.
Yeah, it's very sattvic. I think that it, especially in the yuga we're in, it's not even necessary to use at this point. Only in Satya Yuga can you use that.
That's right. That's right. And for, when you look at the Vimshotri's scheme, you see how you're prepared for each dasha change in the last cycle in each dasha, in each mahadasha. As they start to change, you're being prepared for the next one. And the same thing is happening on a grander scheme by the whole chart, that once you're reaching that period, a lot of things are shifting, and what's moving through the sky is what makes it so interesting, because the transits are what's happening. And I haven't seen anything, but we may see something in the next few weeks, because the planets are sitting right on the edge of Shravana right now, and they've been in Uttarashada for the last year. So as they start to move into Dhanishta and everything, we could see the movement produce something with Abhijit. Especially like and it's not going to happen for a long time, but if Pluto went into it, for example, that could be really profound. But I do believe we're in for something incredibly profound. And I think the Mars Rahu in Taurus right now, we haven't seen, we're about ready to get surprised by something really, a big change, something big changing.
You know what I've noticed? UFO activity has been up.
Yep. And they're talking about it. We had the DNI was on the news just the other day explaining everything that he knew about it.
Wow. See, I don't watch TV. I don't know what's happening. I only hear what people tell me.
Yeah, I don't watch TV either. Somebody sent it to me and said, hey, look at this. It's on UFOs. And my dad counseled me in science fiction from a young age. So I'm all about those kinds of things. I'm very interested in them. And I actually saw one when I was a child. When I was about 8 or 10 years old, we were playing out in Hopeville, California, near the Calexico border in our yard. It was around 7, sun was setting down, and a scout ship about the size of, if you hold your arms in a circle in front of you, it was about that big. It came down and sat right in front of me. It was like floating back and forth. And I'm just looking at it like, what is that? And I'm screaming.
I've seen many. There are 2 stories that I always think about. That I saw some UFOs in New York, in the middle of like nowhere. Well, I mean, I was in a park, but anyway. And the other one I saw while driving in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
And so I think, this is one of the bigger things we're going to see revealed, because Pluto is also about journeys, traveling, technologies, and mastery. It can really bring a mastery of that area where it is.
I just
So
think we have to be very, very careful because, you know, it could be manipulated by the government. You know, they could be behind it. But I have also noticed that whenever we've had more UFO activity, there's something going on. Something big is going on, like when the bombings of near Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that's when they came, when we made the atomic bomb, that's when we started seeing a lot of them. And now I feel that the whole coronavirus vaccination thing, that's why we're seeing more of them now. So, but we really have to be careful because we don't know if it's coming from the government or if it's actually UFOs, you know.
yeah, well, when you look at all the ancient wisdom traditions, like when you read in the Vedas, they talk about the star beings, you know, the fighting with the asuras and the gods, and they flew in chariots, flying chariots, the Vimanas, and in the Ramayana, when Rama was reconnected with Sita, they flew over the tops of the trees in a Vamana, not a Vamana, in
Mahabharata.
a saucer.
Yeah.
And when you read the original tribes from all around the world, they talk about the ant people, the star people. You know, it's a reality. We're not alone.
No, we're not.
And yeah, there's pictures everywhere. And so this is a big revealing time. This is a time when I think we'll see, and Ketu and Scorpio can bring a lot of people from the other world. You know, we could bring these tremendously metaphysical people that are here out of devotion to us. And these are both stable fixed signs. So they're about coming together, connecting, being more devotional. There's a beautiful story unfolding right now. When you look at it from the perspective of what is happening and not just your chart. And I just think that, you know, we're going to see something pretty cool about ready to emerge. And
You know, when I do quantum healing sessions, some people remember, or some people go into the lifetime where they were in other star systems, and they talk about it like they're there now. You know, so it's really interesting because
Yeah.
we're just consciousness. That's really who we truly are in essence.
Yeah. You know, all of us have a like an Akashic memory that shows what's gone on and what will happen. And when I was it was in 1993, my teacher called me to his room one day and dictated a process to me, which is called the eternity process. And I was the first teacher of it. And you do sessions with people, which is not so much different than what you were just talking about, except that it doesn't use hypnosis, and it shows both what's going to happen in the future, and it shows all the things they went through in their past life. And it's about a 3-hour session that you do with them. And yeah, you see those things. I mean, we've been told not to think about those things. You're a quack. You're crazy if you think of that.
Yeah.
But it's everywhere. I mean, everything in life is more mystical than what we could ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's the beauty about the nakshatras, and my appeal to it is really you're looking at the godly forces, which they're the things that are the instruments that are making everything move as it moves. That's the Shakti, it's the prana that's moving through the sky that thank God it's there. And for me, this is the juice of everything I've learned in Vedic astrology. And I'm really honored to be with all of you. I've really enjoyed talking to every single one of you. You all bring I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to Vedic astrology. I've been doing it for quite a while, but I learned so much from every single one of you. Every single time we have a talk, you bring something out that I'm not exposed to because you studied with different teachers than I did. And, you know, this is like the best way to do it, to get together and there's no wrong answers. It's just exploration of understanding the knowledge.
I think that's the best place to be. I think that when we get too caught up in our own belief systems, we kind of really limit ourselves. We put boundaries up and then we don't grow from that, you know? That's why self-righteousness doesn't really work.
That's right. And, you know, like comments from last week, which I'm very much aware of, but I really thank you that whoever said them, I can't remember now, but, you know, painting different pictures of areas in your chart that you hold a lot of energy around. You know, like for me, the 8th house has just been the door knocker for my whole life. Everything has been out of my control, and you know, big shocking surprises coming out of it. So, and then listening to other people's interpretation of it, and I also, you know, you're exactly right. You know, it's like I don't look at it always that way.
Well, I think that's the whole point, right? Having a life means we're just looking at life through our eyes, and we're not just one being, right? We're like millions, billions, trillions of beings, and there are different perspectives, and they're all correct, you know, and we have to take all of that in. Otherwise, we don't really evolve anywhere. We devolve if we limit ourselves.
Yeah, it's really true. It's always a fun thing to entertain new things, and all these classes we get a chance to reflect our ideas together. And it's just you know, I'm very honored that all of you are taking the class with me, and that you know, I don't feel like I'm anywhere over anybody. I'm just sharing something that's been extremely interesting to me in my life, and it's just been a real delight to share it with all of you and to hear your own stories as you explain it. This part right now of the charts, best part of the whole class.
It is so good. You know who I've studied a bit? Ernst Wilhelm. He's Ernst. Do you know Ernst?
Yeah, I know. I met him like 20 years ago. Yeah.
He's amazing. Like he really truly understands very deeply like the truth behind the Vedas and the truth behind all of these ancient scriptures. He knows that they've been coded. So we can't take it as at face value. You have to go deeper into it. You have to meditate on the shlokas, you know? So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And it kind of goes with what I said about the means gathering around sattva. So when you put your attention on the real gems of what's important, it starts bringing everything that you need into that area of your life, and it helps with learning. And when we don't align ourselves with sattva, it's very difficult. Everything's scattered, and it's very difficult to get stuff to work the way we want it. And you know, it doesn't bring peace, happiness, and love. It brings a lot of volatility and other things to it. So
yeah,
it's a lot of the shlokas in the Vedas are you know, tremendous. It's great to go in and read them and to understand, like go into the Vedas. And I have a course I'm going to put out that I developed in 1980. And as I was getting ready to move, I found all my notes, and it goes through every single. So for a month, I was in India, and all the top level with the Maharishi in 1980, all the top level Vedic specialists from all over India came for a month. And so we had the Jyotishis, the you know, the Nadi astrologers, we had the Shukanadi astrologers, and we had the Ayurveda doctors, and some real esoteric ones, and Vastu, all of that presented. And I just took all these notes. And in 1980, nobody in the United States knew anything about the Vedas.
yeah.
And at the end of the course, I was standing waiting for my bus, and Maharishi walks up to me, and there's nobody around. And he looks at me and said, "What are you going to do when you get back home?" And I said, "Well," he had a program that I just talked to you about, where these people were meditating, and that was their job, to meditate and affect those things. And I couldn't be part of it because I was.
That's my kind of job.
Yeah, no, I would love that job, but what I did was I said to him, you know, I really, my father has me working in the business and everything. And he looked at me and he said, good. He said, go back, become the top of your industry, which I did in the high-tech industry. I was written up in magazines for what happened to me. And he said, just become the top. And then when you teach from that. And he said, you'll have all this credibility and everything from it. I forgot all about it. And when I found these notes, I found all the things that he had said about it. And then he looked at me and he said, you took good notes while you were here, didn't you? And I said, yeah. And he said, so go back and travel around the country and give talks on Vedic knowledge. And I did, but just like every organization structure, somebody in the structure doesn't want you to do what you were told to do. So they inhibit you. Every spiritual organization I've been in has them.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that's the beauty of the time that we're in. It's a very Rahu period where we're using technology as we are now, and there's no limit to what we can do.
That's right. Yeah. And so that's what we do, and that's what we are doing. We're diving into things that, if you go back to in the 80s, you couldn't find decent, understandable Jyotisha books. James Braha was the only book you could get, and that wasn't an easy book to read because he was coming from Western, going into Vedic, and it was just it was like pulling teeth to read that book. And then, you know, now we have astute people like Ernst, and you know, even Sam Jeppy's written some great stuff in his Ascendance book that he wrote, which is just I haven't seen anything like it, and a lot of great teachers out right now. The issue is that there's a lot of warring between them, who you should listen to, who you shouldn't listen to.
That's very true, and it's so frustrating to watch.
Yeah, I went through a big catharsis in the last week or so as I went through and changed everything, and in the last 6 months I've changed everything that I've thought about in the last 10 years. And I think when we believe in ourselves and quit doubting ourselves from the Libra side of things, and we just do what we know, it brings truth out. And we're all dharmic people. We wouldn't be here. And I think we have to follow our dharma. And it's a time for a lot of us that we need to step out and we need to be heard. You know, we can't stand behind people anymore. We have to express what we are. And that's the biggest issue. When we did, over the last year, all it did was brought fights.
I think you're right. I mean, if you look at the Gita, it's all about following your swadharma, you know, so it's not about you trying to fit anyone else's mold. It's really about you finding your own individual grace and then really truly living it, you know. And I think that's where we're heading to, you know, when we move into Aquarius. Aquarius is not about socialism. It's really about knowing your individuality and living it to the best of your ability. And then we're all, you know, beautiful pieces to the grand puzzle. And it all works out if we just follow our dharma.
Yeah, we have to share with the collective what we understand. It's part of life, you know. That's the difficult thing, where we have a low self-image of ourselves because there's a little bit of fear. Okay, I'm standing alone with this, and I have to get out there and bring that out. The Saturn energy is extremely real when it comes to that. And a lot of people, I know a lot of people have taken Jyotish and they won't do readings with people. And I'm like, you know, you have to master that. When I first started, I did 2,000 charts in the first year. Now, I didn't do 2,000 readings. I did maybe 200, but I had all these charts, examples that I really went into and studied, and I had thousands of them, you know, from all those years when we were teaching astrology to people, and lots of people were interested in it. So I think the more you dive in and just start doing it and not caring, you know, what belief system you have to be part of, you already know it inside. We know it all. We haven't been born on this earth, you know, really missing anything. It's all there. We just have to find it. And I think this is the time when the reality really comes out. All this stuff in Capricorn right now is where the world needs to go through a big transformation, and it's timeline shifting, you know. That's a sign where literally Saturn rules time, and it's shifting. And it's shifting between fear and love, and, you know, light and dark. All that stuff's happening right now. And we just have to make a commitment to those things that we feel are the highest expression of that in our life, because that's where the Lord of beliefs and fantasy and the bigger picture, and the Lord of reality, you know, what's real? What do you see? Not what are you being told? That's ruling that whole area of the sky. And now all the planets are like, you know, flying through there. They were all being hosted by Capricorn for a while, and now they're taking that story out to the collective and to the rest of the world. So it's a big game that we're playing right now,
And we just have to enjoy the ride. We have to enjoy the process. It's really about the process and not the destination.
See, and that's what the witness is. That's being the witness. You don't have any hand in anything. You know, it's all being done. And we have to stop resisting what we want and be with what is. And when you're with what's happening, then you're attuned to the laws of nature. You're not resisting anything. And it's all a flow. And we worry so much. Oh my God, Saturn's going to go here. And then Mars is going to do this. And it's like, it doesn't always do that. And
you know what? Which book was amazing to read? The Greatness of Saturn.
Yes.
That's really, it's a beautiful book. It's a therapeutic book, and I think, you know, I always recommend that one specifically to really truly know Saturn, because it really puts Saturn in a very good light.
It's the book of my life.
It's a great book. I really love it.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I never really, until I started studying Jyotish, I heard all these stories about Saturn, and none of them were true. But that book was given to me when I first started, and it was brilliant. Swoboda really did a great job on that book.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're running way over time, and I appreciate you spending the time talking, Susan and Kathy, and I know Melanie would have if I'd had something on her chart, and Tina. So, and I hope maybe we'll hear from Tina maybe in the next session. And I want to hear from all of you, you know, just open your mics and share. But we're at almost 2, so we've done another Jeff Poole over class. My Swati sometimes can be too, it can be too demonstrative. So I think what we'll do is we'll end it here, and I think we're going to really have fun in the next one. So I don't know what to tell you yet until next week after I've moved out of here, when I'll be in a stable place that we can do the last course, but I'm thinking it'll probably be 2 weeks. Barry was suggesting, you know, take Easter week off and pick it up in a month, but I think a month is a long way to keep. I think if we could do it within 2 weeks, it's more in alignment with what we've done so far, and then we don't have to wait a couple of weeks longer than that in order to finish up the nakshatras. But the best ones, I think, the next 3 are some of the really coolest ones.
Yeah, whenever you can.
All right.
Thank you.
And I'll let you know. I'll let you after I get on the road and move. I'll let you know when we have the time to do it, and we can have a little discussion if that'll work for everybody, and we'll just pick the opportune time for everybody. All right.
Jeff, so next week we are getting together?
Thank you.
No, next week we won't get together because I'm going to be on the road. I'm moving, and I'm going to be heading to Florida, and also be passing through Iowa as I go.
Okay,
And
okay.
I don't know what's going to happen. It's just one of those journeys, you know. It's a movable sign day to go get out on the road and experience.
Well,
You
be
know,
safe and have a great time.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. And we'll talk about it when I get back and we have our next class. But all of you have a wonderful Easter holiday. And as soon as I get this recording, I'll send everybody the links to everything. And give me a couple of hours and I'll update all the mistakes that were on the charts. It seems like every single week, no matter what I do, I overlook something. So I'm cleaning them up on the back end. So at the end we have, and I'm updating them over the top of the stuff that's there. So we're getting rid of anything I've missed. All right. So right now, I'll just say goodbye to everyone. You guys have a wonderful couple of weeks, and we'll be back together soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.